What's up guys, this is Cher talking, welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'll be making a full review for the Romancing Festival Professor banner that brings Professor support that can increase the potential of a character for 10 turns, then Black, a counter specialist, Leonid, a hybrid damage dealer but also debuffer, and Robin, fake, a damage dealer but also cover specialist, and all type of support. Let's go and talk about Professor. She gives a name to the banner. She has 120% dexterity, although she's not a really strong damage dealer, only 75 endurance, but 100% will. She still has 100% agility and intelligence because she can inherit some ailment and debuff skills. At the start of a turn, she has 50% chance to trigger all following effects. One can happen, none can happen, multiple can happen. Attack boost that increases damage potential by 30% can stack. Defense boost that increases damage taken by 15% can stack. All status buff by 15%. All surviving allies action order up, that will increase their action order to attack before enemies, and also recover all surviving allies HP by around 300. So 50% chance is not reliable. If you get all effects, you are very lucky, but you will just get at least an average of 2. But in hard challenges, you don't want to prey on RNG. At the end of every 10 turns, she will also recover the usage of Professor Special, a skill that we'll be talking in a few. When attack and damage is reduced by 25%, and again by 30%. We have 5 EP per turn, and a 30% damage increase when using guns. Skill number 1 is Dispel Bullet. It is a buff break skill with 8 power and 5 EP cost. As considering gunners, we don't have many options actually. We have Arsenal. Arsenal can do it via the S-style inheritance, heavily nullifier. As you can see here, it's even an AoE buff break. And that's it. If you don't have any version of Arsenal, you still have the S-style to use versus Vampire Lady. Well, I did beat Vampire Lady with just damage dealers, but if you like to have the real skill that can buff break, Professor is your option. Now, the second skill is Professor Special. It has delay and can only be used once per battle. It will recover the target HP. That's nice because it will probably have acted before. It will cleanse all ailments. Okay. And then will grant this Unparalleled passive by 10 turns. What is this? Well, Unparalleled gives a lot of different effects, like Morale Up Extreme, that will increase damage potential by 50% every turn for just that turn. A Guard Up Medium that will decrease damage taken by 25%, just that turn, will not stack. And buffs all status by 15% while also recovering BP by 3. Well, if you consider that this Guard Up Medium, it's actually not that great. We have many characters that can cast Defense Boost Medium and can keep casting that to the party. That's, well, unimpressive. I do believe that, yeah, Morale Up Extreme 50% damage increase is not easy to find to the party, but 15% status buff won't matter as much. Recovering 3 BP could help, but we already have BP batteries, so that's something that you're giving to just one character, and it will not increase the damage by all that much, to be honest. Okay, but then we have the third skill, that is a single target blunt attack that can be used 3 times per battle. Costs 10, has S power, and after attacking, grants the user exciting hit. So, in this attack, on the next turn, you will be able to chase with this skill. This skill is Exciting Bullet. C power only, and when attack lands, it will debuff the enemy STR and endurance by just 10%, because this will be rank 1 if I'm not mistaken. Then it has a 25% chance to apply attack down. That will decrease the attack from the enemy by 10%. And then a defense down. That will decrease the defense of the enemy by 10% as well. But just 25% chance to trigger those two effects separately even. Well, will this be important in a fight? No. The thing is, you can use this skill 3 times per battle. It takes time, but eventually you have 3 chases with C power. But this character doesn't even have a lot of damage. It's just 30% passive, alongside a chance of getting the attack boost to increase a little further. But it's not really good. It's just like when we were loading bullets with Leon ages and ages ago, and we could even load every turn. We are moving from that type of strategy to use someone like Professor, that bullets will eventually debuff STR and endurance by 30% when you have all 3 bullets, but by the time you have all bullets, you would have needed a debuffer already, because yeah, you have to debuff from start. So that's why I don't think that's a good idea to rely on Professor as a full-time debuffer. As for inheritance, we have Stun Shock to Stun Kazinsi from that S version. The first premium style has AoE Confusion for Wuhan, and the Bunny style has Pink Gun Break. That is interesting because it decreases the defense of the enemy for the whole fight by 25%, and you can even use this 2 times. It's very nice inheritance because, well, after you use it 2 times, you increase the damage of everyone, and that's it. Now, talking about Professor Special again, I don't think this skill changes much about performance. It will increase a little bit of the damage, get some extra BP to try to keep some cycles, but you're still spending 1 slot to try to improve 1 character, while you could use a specialist that will help the party much more. And all the effects that you get from RNG are not reliable. They can help, but they cannot. So Professor is a pretty odd style that just tries to help a little, but it's probably just designed for Remembrance, because there you will just need to clear the fight once and then you can restart till it works, but that's not the type of strategy that I want. And Professor is way too hard to use and just have a slot because of being a gunner, where we don't have many gunner supports. But all in all, I believe this character is extremely skippable and only deserves a 2.5 out of 5 in my grading system. The next character is Leonid, and he's a hybrid and an interesting one. We have 103% STR, not much high, but 128% agility, that's a very good value, and 110% intelligence since he can actually use the spells. It was nice with 98, pretty safe, and even endurance is good on 89. Moving on. Starts the fight with the Overdrive Gorge fully filled, and on the start of a round, we'll also buff On Will by 25%. Also, ailment resistance by extreme effect. That's higher even than what Key and Muse does. And then, on start of a turn, also including turn 1, you're gonna buff your will again, and your ailment resistance again, and then every next turn. So turn 1, you'll have a lot of ailment and will buffs. Then also when landing an attack, will grant the target the Vampire Imprint, and that has no turn limit. That's actually a pretty interesting thing. When the target has this Vampire Imprint, on the start of the next turn, it will reduce own STR and agility by 5%, a max of 2 times. Will also buff all surviving enemies STR and agility by 5% too. So that's kind of the evolution of what we had in the past with Summer Orlette. Remember Summer Orlette? I never got this character, but she is actually interesting. She has Binding Flames, and the enemy will then debuff STR and intelligence by 5% on the next turn, max of 3 times. And you could keep casting this so that you would have many stacks. Leonid is similar, but in his case, he can only keep 2 stacks, whereas Orlette can keep 3. And Orlette has STR and intelligence, better debuffs than STR and agility, while Leonid will give extra buffs to the party that really don't make much difference anyway. Now damage increases by 30%, then by another 30%, has 30% damage reduction at all times. By the end of turn, recovers BP by 2, so he is a 5 BP per turn character, and will also increase OD guard by 35 points. When landing an attack, he always chases with Luigi Palm. Luigi Palm is an 8-power attack with Blunted Shadow. So depending on boss behavior, sometimes Leonid can even enter Overdrive from 0 to max in 1 turn only, but usually it takes 2 turns to get into Overdrive so that he can use it on turn 3. Then after activating an Overdrive attack, he always chases with Devil's Touch. That is his skill 3. This attack has a 9 BP cost when used as a command, has S power, and blunt and shadow damage. When the attack hits, reduces the target STR and agility by If a command, 20%. If a chains on overdrive, 15%. And when the attack hits as well, he's going to buff his STR and agility by 30% if used as a command, or 25% when used as a chase. We'll also recover HP always by around 1.2 thousand. So the skill is exactly interesting because it has the same debuff values as his skill, Vampire Imprint, that, look, when landing an attack, right? When you are attacking, you have a chase. That means that you are going to apply 4 times Vampire Imprint. And if you are on overdrive, you have an extra chase, meaning that you will apply 6 stacks of Vampire Imprint. That's a lot, but they will trigger 2 times, meaning that, well, if you consider the average of 2 turns with 1 chase and the 3rd turn with an overdrive chase, you're going to have a total of 12 stacks of Vampire Imprint over the course of 3 turns. But then, you can never debuff more than 15% since you have a max of 3 attacks at most. And if you had another 2, the max is 25% because of attacking twice in a turn, 3 times in the another. So, combining with the max of debuffing 20%, the max that Leonid can debuff from an enemy will be 40% on a turn, and then up to 55% on overdrive. Yes, if you consider everything fully stacked. It's a very good debuff value. Yes, Leonid can debuff a lot. And will also be self-buffing if you have BP batteries, because this guy has only 5 BP per turn, and the best case scenario is to keep casting Devil's Touch. But he does have some other skills that you may or not want to use. Like, the second skill, Vital Absorb, is a spell, so it's based on intelligence. Its single target will grant the target morale down medium. That will decrease damage taken by 25%. When the attack lands, will also grant the user morale up very large. This one will increase your damage by 50% less for 3 turns. Okay, here it can actually be interesting, but here you'll be decreasing the debuff potential of the character. So you may actually open with Devil's Touch so that you have debuff first, and on the second turn you can debuff more via the passive and chains attacks. And then on the second turn, you're going to use Vital Absorb. Again, you need BP batteries to have enough BP, so that you have morale down medium casted. And it will also increase his own damage potential. But it depends on the fight. Sometimes it's always better to debuff the enemy than to cast morale down medium, since the debuff here is 20%. But if it's a hybrid enemy that doesn't even always use STR or agility, well, morale down will be very nice to just have a little bit of everything. He still has skill number 1, that is a C power 1 BP attack. All of his attacks has Blunting Shadow, so he has good coverage, to be honest. I do like Leonid. He has interesting debuff options, but the problem is that he's competing with many other debuffers that are also very good. Like Esper Gal, that's still a very strong debuffer, because she also buff breaks. And he is competing with Xiao. Xiao is an extraordinary debuffer because she chases 2 times. And Xiao can debuff a lot as well. She has chase attacks, she has an extra attack on overdrive too. She can debuff Dexterity, Intelligence, and STR, although by lower levels. But she can also do it via AoE instead of single target. There's also Paulus. That is a very good debuffer. He's a blunt specialist. He allows everyone to become a debuffer too. He can debuff STR, Agility, and Dexterity, and Intelligence too, via Inheritance. With the other character being Ellen. Ellen is a slash and blunt damage dealer that can also debuff. She needs extreme PP resources. Monica works super well with Ellen, but you can also sometimes use someone like Hardy or Candy. So there is a lot of competition for our dear friend Leonid. Leonid is good and all, but many times he will prefer STR and Intelligence debuff than STR and Agility debuff, and you can find that in many other sources. As for Inheritance, you have Racking from his A style to stun Kazinsi, Then you have Poison Blow to Poison Carmine. Then you have Uhor from his first premium style that can apply Confusion, but it's just single target. Then you can debuff STR only with 6 PP if you want it. Then he has this other skill called Euthanize Plus that can debuff the enemy intelligence. This one is amazing. Debuffs by 30% while also buffing his own intelligence by 40. It costs 8 and it's actually a very nice inheritance. If you have this one here, I would say that this Leonid becomes much better because he would then be debuffing STR, intelligence, and agility. And you can actually prefer to keep using Euthanize besides anything else. He can also use an AoE attack that can poison, confuse, sleep, and instant kill for many remembrance fights. Or if you just want STR and agility buff anyway, you can inherit Glass of Blood. That gives a hit up for himself. He recovers HP and then casts Revitalize 1 to everyone. And by the end of turn, they have a chance to recover HP and BP. But it's just 25, it's not reliable, I don't really like this, and they even take recoil damage. So Euthanize Plus is the best inheritance that you can have, because that allows him to become also an intelligence debuffer. And if you have that inheritance, I would say that this Leonid receives a 4 out of 5. Without it, it's just a 3.5 out of 5, since he is a little redundant, and we have better debuffers, and it's kind of hard to choose Leonid over any other. The next character is Black, and he has 120% STR, just 89 endurance and will. These values could be much higher, but 99% agility and 91% intelligence. Yes, this guy can debuff as well. When attacked, damage will be reduced by 25%, and then by another 30%. When landing an attack, he recovers HP by around 300 and also 1 BP. When not attacking as well, he will always chase with Pirate's Heat. That allows him to enter a defensive counter stance. And after that, he will always counter with Axe Bomber. And Axe Bomber is an S-Power attack that can debuff STR and Endurance by 15%. Well, Endurance debuff doesn't matter much, but STR debuff can be helpful, because many bosses will use some STR-based skills to attack you with a direct. Because many bosses may use STR-based skills to attack you directly, and then he will counter, decreasing their damage output. And then the problem is just that he has to attack before the enemy to enter this defensive counter stance. It is not an evasive counter stance, meaning that he still takes damage although he decreases. And he also has a 50% chance to chase with Reverse Delta Plus, but this does not trigger on counter attacks, so only when attacking. Reverse Delta Plus is nice because it's slash and blunt. Not just that, it also gives you an attack boost that will increase your damage potential by 25% and lasts for 2 turns. That can stack. Has double S power and pretty close to triple S. By start of turn, he will also always buff STR and Dexterity by 25%, and will also grant himself a heat up that increases damage potential by 20%, lasts for 5 times, reaching 100 potential by turn 5. Then he gets another 20% damage increase, and when landing a weak attack, damage will increase by yet another 20, for a total of 140% damage increase with this character. Well, skill number 1 is called Healing Axe. It's a C power attack with 3 BP cost, slash and blunt, that will recover HP by around 1.2 thousand. As you can see, all of his attacks have slash and blunt, so very good coverage. The second one, Vanity Tornado, it's a AoE slash and blunt attack, 9 BP cost, that can buff break all enemies. Well, that's nice if you need, but 9 BP is higher than what we have with Paulus. Paulus has an AoE buff break, his attack is weaker, it's just D, but it also has double element and also buff breaks all enemies. Paulus is a much better style than Black, but the thing with Black is that he uses axes, and by using axes he will have a better chance to be used. But it's not just Black that can buff break. Another character that can buff break when using axes is Hardy. And now we have 2 versions of Hardy. Even his welfare style can inherit from the first monster that has Punching My Way. 8 PP for buff break. It is single target, but if you are after Vampire Lady Remembrance, well, you only need a single target version of buff break. So this is kind of wasted unless you're bringing him for hard challenges. but I don't think he's good enough, but he works. The third skill is power backslash that before attacking grants the user morale up medium, increasing his damage potential by 25% for 5 turns. Then he launches the attack, and after attacking, grants himself a guard up medium, decreasing damage taken by 25%. It's just to himself, so that's not that great, but it's 10 BP cost for double S power. It is okay. So the problem is that this is not a fast skill. None of his skills are fast, so he has to be faster than the enemies in order to enter the defensive counter stance and counter with Axe Bomber. And he only debuffs STR and Endurance, and Endurance debuff doesn't matter much, like I said, just STR. So although this guy works and people will be using him on Megalith Dragon Remembrance Battle, there are other counter specialists for Axe. Yes, there are. Like, for example, Torpe. Many people got Torpe by accident, and he is actually very nice, because he has this skill called Militant Slash that is fast, enters a defensive counter stance, and then counters with Savage Slash, while still buffing our surviving allies will. A lot of different effects for just 5 BP. This skill can also be found on a different version of Hulk, and he's going to get yet another style, and that one is very good, that applies attack and defense boosts, and you can inherit and use it as your main counter specialist if you want. Torpe also has this AoE guard up very large that he can use every 5 turns, because he recovers, but he starts with 2 stacks, so he does offer more. But the good thing about Black is that the next boss, Megalith Dragon, will self-buff. So sometimes you actually want to use Vanity Tornado just to buff break the Megalith Dragon and then try to counter with the same unit. So there's at least this type of utility for him. Besides, as for inheritance, nothing really stands out. If you want to make him a damage dealer with cheap attacks, you can use Yo-Yo Plus. That attacks 2 times with STR buff in fights where you can buff. He has a style that can paralyze Real Queen. That's it. There's no other inheritance that makes sense with Black. And if you want to counter with Slash, you have Julian, that is such a good character, and can even get better now with the taunt effect. Also, Black does not taunt. And there's still Human Male that can counter with both Slash and Blunt as well. So I don't think Black adds much to Axe teams besides being useful for the next Remembrance Battle, but that does not add much value to this character. I believe he deserves just a 3 out of 5. The last character is Robin Fake, and I really love this character. 110% Endurance and 110% Will with 120% Dexterity, very good status. He still has 92% Intelligence because he can use it as a debuffer. Very bad agility, and there is a reason for this, and you actually want him to be the last character attacking. Moving on. When attacked and when in a pre-action stance, damage taken will be reduced. That means that you were attacked before you used any skill. You want to be the last one to attack. And when an ally is attacked, he has a 50% chance to take this ally place, reduces the damage, and cover. I was just complaining some time ago about the cover mechanic not being so good, and now we have a character with 50% chance, and I do believe that's good when it's a single target attack that was not directly towards Robin. You will have a very high chance to protect all single target attacks, and now for AoE, half of the time, only 4 characters will be hit. Robin and 3 others. He will protect someone. Now, after activating either skill 2 or 3, he has a chains skill and many effects. I'll be talking about that later. Also, when landing an attack, he will grant himself a defense down that increases his defense by 50% for 1 turn. Some of his skills are even related to chains attacks, so you don't want to attack before the enemy. Robin Fake does not want to use Overdrive ever. Now, damage taken is reduced at all times by 25%, then by another 30%. He has 30% damage increase at all times, and by the end of a turn, we recover around 300 HP and 1 BP. He only has 4 BP per turn, and he can actually get a lot if he has a good BP battery. Skill number 1 is something that you will never be using, but it's called Skilled Stab. It's a single target attack that can buff dexterity by 30%. You can kind of use this, but I'll be explaining in a few. You want to start the fight with barrel assault. This has delay, so that he will never attack before the enemy, unless the enemy also has delay, and it's slower than robbing. It's hard to find enemies like that. It has both pierce and blunt damage, and will grant the user this clumsy landing passive. That, on the start of a turn, you will cast delay stance for 1 turn, max of 2 times, so that you will keep that delay stance. The attack is pretty strong, has 4S power, so this is one of the skills that will trigger all of these effects. Skill number 2, the Mark of Robbing, is a single target attack with just pierce that will grant the user this attack boost that increases damage potential by up to 20% on max level, then attacks with triple S power. So anytime you use any of those 2 skills, you will get all of these effects. What are those? You chase with Screwdriver plus 2 times. Screwdriver plus is a triple S power attack with just pierce damage. It's critical to female enemies, and it can debuff the enemy STR and agility by 15%. It still relies on the intelligence of Robin that may not be high enough, so you probably want to use him together with someone like Matriarch so that he has higher intelligence. He will get from her skill, and then he attacks and buffs 2 times, so it actually fixes his intelligence problem. Besides the chase attack, he grants himself Masked Crusader proof for 3 turns. But in reality, it's just for 2 turns, because he attacked on delay. Then on the next turn, and the one after, he will have this passive that can trigger up to 4 times for each stack. You can use 2 stacks because you can use it on turn 1, then on turn 2, so that on turn 3 you have 2 stacks. For a max of 4 times. When he is attacked, doesn't matter if it's a direct or an indirect attack. It's better if you are fighting an enemy that has many AoE attacks so that he will always be hit. But if the enemy has single target attacks, it is better to use him on a Rising King or Rising Phoenix formation. Even if he's not hit, he may still cover for someone and still be hit. And he will have all other surviving allies, but not himself, an attack boost that will increase damage potential by 10%, lasts for 2 turns. Then, all other surviving allies, a defense boost that increases damage taken by 10%, lasts for 2 turns, can also stack. Will also recover all surviving allies BP by 1. So, the interesting thing is that he becomes now a defensive boost applier and BP battery. And you can have 2 stacks of this, but you still can only trigger it 4 times, if the enemy even attacks him 4 times. This is kind of like the reverse method of Monica. Monica has something similar, but she needs to go before the enemy and even on a fast stance that she can apply to herself, but with a chance, while Robin has a guarantee when attacking. She can use the Godspeed stance formation that will fix the problem, so that she can use Galloping Charge every turn. In her case, she casts the same thing, 10% attack boost, 10% defense boost, but instead of giving 1 BP, she reduces the BP cost of all other surviving allies. But she also gives the attack and defense boost to herself, so she becomes better defensively, because she's not a tank like Robin is. Her damage is much inferior to Robin. Monica is easier to use, because if you have a secondary BP battery, Katarina gives her a lot, but she will not have her full moments. She can get as much as 8 stacks of all of this, but usually just 6 if you're playing her with just Katarina and not a secondary BP battery. But 6 stacks of this is still better than 4 that Robin can give. But she doesn't do much damage. That's the difference between them. And she relies on a specific formation or on a chance to get her fast stance, while Robin can control when he gets into delay, just by using his own skills. And when you consider that the guy has very strong chases with triple S power even, while still giving other effects to the party. He's actually a pretty big player on the new meta. May not give as much defense boost and BP reduction as Monica, but he may not need that since he can be your primary damage dealer on a fight. That's pretty interesting. Well, remember that we have many characters that have just a 50% chance to chase. Even Paulus has. He has a double S and a triple S power attack. They debuff. Robin will always debuff. Well, if he has enough intelligence, and he will always chase 2 times. The difference is that Paulus, of course, allows everyone to debuff, and Robin Fake will need BP batteries, much like Monica also needs. So they are even similar on this regard. Now, if you don't have any BP battery, you have to, for example, use Barrel Assault, and then Skillet Stab, and then go back to Barrel Assault to keep that delayed stance. And that's not as great. That's why he can become very useful on full potential, but he's not easy to use. Like I said for Monica, he also deserves a 4 out of 5, and he's a very good player in the new meta. But if you already have Monica, you don't need to get Robin as well, you are pretty much safe. Now, back to the banner image. Is this banner worth summoning for? In my opinion, no. The only really good character here is Robin Fake, and he competes with Monica while still being able to be used together. It's just that it will be kinda of overkill, but they still work. If you like Leonid, he's also good style, but Black and Professor are really underwhelming. I don't like them, and even Leonid is very easy to skip when compared to any other recent debuffers. That's why I believe this banner only deserves a Bronze Plus award, even with 4 different styles. Robin Fake is the best one here, but anyone else would just not advance your party in the next levels. But what is your opinion? Please say here in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you soon in the next video or live stream. Goodbye.